The snowfall hit immediately, like the sun setting. Fluffy, large snowflakes covered the old house, surrounded by light. Drifts had already formed near the wooden front door, adorned with an ugly, bald Christmas wreath. If the residents didn't do something about it now, there wouldn't be any problems later. But looking at the house, it seemed as if no one lived there. Where did that dim light in the ground floor windows come from? A fireplace was burning in the living room. Several knitted logs lay next to it. In front of the fireplace, on a large old rectangular rug, sat two children, a boy and a girl, age 7. They stretched their small feet in woolen socks toward the fireplace, an old gray blanket draped over their shoulders. They stared into the fire in silence. They were surrounded by shabby furnishings, an old sagging sofa, a massive chest of drawers, and a small wooden table at the front, one of whose legs threatened to fall off any minute now. The wooden window frames had cracks, which was why the howling of the blizzard outside was so clearly audible in the room. Long, dirty curtains swayed gently in the draft. An older girl entered the room. She was wearing an awkward brown dress with an apron and a woolen shawl, clearly too big for her, slung over her shoulders. She placed 3 mugs of a fragrant brown drink in front of the fireplace. "Here, I've come for cocoa in honor of the holiday," the girl said, smiling. The children sifted through the mugs and reached for them. Their mood was no longer as gloomy as before. "Elle Marie, where did you get the money?" the boy asked with a searching gaze. The girl smiled. She sat down opposite the children, next to the fireplace, because her dress let in the chill that was seeping into the house. "Tell me all about it, Sven." "Yes, tell me, Helga demanded happily. She didn't touch her drink, trying to prolong the pleasure as long as possible. She buried her nose in the mug, inhaling the slightly sweet scent and feeling the warmth. But despite the setting and circumstances, the children seemed unfazed by their poverty. They felt like ordinary children drinking cocoa on a holiday, having already unwrapped their presents and put on the woolen socks they'd been given. And now, on this dark night, they wanted to listen to stories. "Tell me stories," Sven chimed in to his sister. "Ah," Marielle drawled with a sly smile, "that's what you want, you little rascals." "We're not pranksters," Sven protested. "Oh, really? Well, I hope we don't want our house shaken with the sound of Krampus's footsteps and chains." In those parts, the name Krampus struck terror into every child. But even so, Sven and Helga leaned forward, closer to the storyteller, so as not to utter a single difficult word. "You know who Krampus is, right? Of course, you know you're experiencing the most childish of experiences. But have you ever heard anything about Belsnickel? I can see it in your eyes that this isn't the first time I've heard that name." "Yes, I've heard that name somewhere before, but I can't remember." "You're wrong!" Marielle raised a finger admonishingly. "Belsnickel is a bearded man dressed in rags. What are you wearing? But he wanders through the villages, looking for naughty children, and when he finds them, he punishes them with a rod." She commissioned a pantomime, as if she were beating a child before the rod. In this theater, one actor, like shadows, placed a spoon on the dark window behind us. The children laughed, not allowing themselves to be beaten with rods. Their laughter sounded cheerful at first, but if you listened closely, you could hear the dry, dusty rustle of their eyes. "But that doesn't apply to you, does it?" Marielle asked cheerfully, finishing her performance. "We've been very obedient all year," the children answered in unison. "What is," Muriel smiled. "Ah, look in the fireplace." The children cautiously brought their faces to the fire, enjoying and fearing the heat. They couldn't understand what they were supposed to see there. Muriel approached the fire with great theatricality, her face slashed across her beautiful face. She carefully turned her head to keep her long wheat-colored hair out of the flames, and placed her hand to her ear as if gathering something in the flames. Sven and Helga didn't do the same. They merely watched Muriel, occasionally glancing at the red flames. What do you hear there?" Helga asked. "What are we supposed to see?" Sven asked. Muriel looked at them, as if the children should know what they were seeing. She looked surprised, but then broke into a long smile. "What? You don't know?" The children nodded. "Hark! I hear in the howling wind a Yule cat calling for the hunt. And you?" "No," the brother and sister whispered. "And you haven't heard of the Yule cat?" "What an omission! So listen, heed every word, for your life depends on it." Muriel lunged at the child. Sven and Helga recoiled, but immediately smiled and giggled. Sister Muriel would do them no harm. She would protect them and always keep them safe. As soon as Yule arrives, and the longest, darkest night plunges us into anticipation of the sun, a huge cat descends from the snowy mountain peaks. He has long fur, blacker than the night, and his eyes glow yellow like smoldering embers. Some say he wears a red ribbon with a bell around his neck, so a faint ringing sound can be heard amid the howling snowstorm. And then you know, the Yule cat is coming. Muriel fell silent, as if listening to the blizzard raging outside the window. The children also leaned toward the window, their ears twitching. This cat is so enormous that he's much taller than our house, taller than the trees in the forest, taller than even the oldest pine tree. And it rushes swiftly, sweeping up snow with its powerful paws, creating dunes. It seeks out people. On the night of the winter solstice, it peers into the windows of houses. With its keen eye, it searches for those. Who do you think it's looking for, Sven? The boy nods his head vigorously. It's looking for those who haven't bought new woolen clothes all year. And no one who doesn't greet Yule in new woolen clothes will escape its notice. You do have something woolen for this night, right? Helga and Sven simultaneously lift their little feet, revealing the gray woolen socks they found by the fireplace this morning. They laugh, as if this laughter is meant to signify that they've fooled the dreaded Yule cat. Muriel smiles and wraps herself tighter in the woolen shawl she knitted along with the children's socks. But why were we staring into the fireplace? Helga asks seriously. A clever girl. You can't fool her. Muriel laughs. And so she can see the cat's face in the fire. He'll peer into every window with his huge yellow eye. But you can tell he's coming not only by the jingle of the bell, but also by the Yule cat appearing in the flames. After all, it's not just any kind of firewood that burns on this night, but magical firewood. The children gasp and look into the fireplace. But what's so special about it? Do you see that thick log? Muriel points so close to the fire that it seems certain she'll burn herself. But that doesn't happen. Helga and Sven nod quickly. Then know that this is the Yule log. It's magical, for it wards off evil spirits from our house. You go to bed, and I'll sit up all night and make sure it doesn't go out. because if it goes out, oh, there will be a lot of trouble. And the Yule Cat couldn't get us because of this log, Marielle laughs. How cunning. But no, it's just the way things are. Everything has rules. The girl's face turned serious. The rules are that we must respect the spirits and their rules. The Yule Cat punishes those left without woolen clothing on Yule, regardless of whether they have the magic log or not. Those are the rules. Krampus drags mischievous children into the mountains, and Belsnickel beats the disobedient with a rod. We must respect that, for we are only guests here, surrounded by countless spirits, and this is their home. And they only come out on Yule night. You could say they celebrate too, in their own way, but they celebrate. These are their rituals, their job, to come for those who have not followed the rules. Nothing can be done about it. We must be obedient and hard-working. And who does the Yule log protect us from? Sven asked quietly. From everyone else, Marielle smiled. For example, the Yule lads. They're unpleasant creatures, for they were once naughty pranksters. There are usually 13 of them, and they accompany the giantess Grilla, who descends from the mountains at Yule. Have you heard of her? Exactly. And she likes to make a stew out of the little hooligans. The Yule lads, on the other hand, can run into the house through the fireplace and smash everything, overturn tables and chairs, throw down paintings, and do other mischief. Although some say they bring small gifts to children who have been good all year. In any case, I don't want them in our house. The children slowly sipped the sweet drink. Helga stared, mesmerized, at the fire, at the thick log crackling softly, at the flames licking the piece of wood and the stones, imprisoning them. She felt the heat from the fireplace on her feet, and the chill from the cracks in the windows and attic on her back. The fire captivated her, captivating her gaze, beckoning and seemingly coaxing her, begging and wanting to tell her secrets. But she didn't approach, only watched, trying to decipher ancient legends in the dancing flames. And then, in the flames, she seemed to see the face of a cat with large tufted ears looking at her and licking its lips. Helga leaned forward, her eyebrows raised, and she was about to tell her sister about it. But the cat's outline vanished as abruptly as it had appeared. "Helga, what are you looking at?" Sven asked, noticing his sister had been staring at the fire for a long time. "Do you see something there?" A shadow of worry flitted behind Marielle's smile. "No," the girl answered firmly. "I was just looking at the fire. I remembered how Dad taught me how to light the fireplace. Marielle, where are our parents?" The silence in the room was broken only by the whistle of the raging snowstorm outside the window. Marielle looked at the children with concern, though she continued to smile. She tried to protect them from all adversity. "Well, what do you mean you don't remember? Our roof was leaking, so our parents went to get some boards to fix it. But they decided to fix the whole house. That's why they're so late." Marielle smiled her widest smile. She couldn't tell them the truth, couldn't explain that she'd had to take a vile job to feed these children so they could remain children, children whose childhood hadn't been taken from them. How could she explain to them that she didn't know where their parents were or what future awaited them? "The neighbors' children told me they overheard their parents say a boy was found dead in the forest last winter with straw and stones in his stomach. Horrible!" Sven exclaimed. "Horrible! Marielle echoed, clutching her head. It seems to me that Frau Perchta is stalking the woods. Tremble, tremble. She's coming for the children who haven't been diligent and hard-working this past year. If you've been lazy, the same fate awaits you as that boy in the winter forest. She'll cut your belly open with her enormous scissors, which she carries in a large wicker basket on her back, stuff it with stones and straw, and won't even sew it up. Ha! The children stared at the storyteller, afraid to breathe. "And what does this Frau look like?" asked Sven. He was particularly impressed by this story. "Oh, you ask the right question, boy. She's dressed in a long white robe, her head covered by a huge hood, from which only her huge dirty beak protrudes. She's girdled with several belts, and her chest is crisscrossed with straps that hold a large basket on her back. From that basket protrude enormous scissors, and the long robe conceals her goose foot, which is why the tracks she leaves in the snow are so strange. If you hear a loud, guttural, and threatening ga 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 coming from somewhere, you can be sure Perchta is nearby." "How can they not be afraid of her?" Helga whispered. "You have to work hard, apply yourself to your work all year round. There's a time to rest, but there's also a time to work. They also say she likes it when the girls in the house spin flax and wool. We did that, didn't we? We spun wool, worked hard." "Yes," the children chorused. "Then we have nothing to fear." Marielle laughed. She cast a gentle glance at Sven and Helga, whose blanket had already fallen from their shoulders without their noticing. "You know, enough fairy tales for this longest night. It's time for you to go to bed." The children's expressions changed abruptly. "No!" Sven exclaimed. "We don't want to sleep?" Helga whined. "Tell me more stories," Sven demanded. "Tell me at least one more." Helga coaxed. Marielle beamed again and put her hands on her hips. "What kind of mutiny is this on the ship?" "Ha ha. Okay, just one more, and then you go to bed, okay? I just happen to have a new story for you, not from our part of the world. A gentleman told it to me recently. He came from an island called Britain, I think, and there he lived in a place called Wales. Yeah, I think that's what he called his people. Something that started with the letter V. I can't remember. But that won't stop me from retelling the ritual he told me. He said that in his homeland at Christmas, they take a stick, put a white sheet on it, and hang a horse's skull on the end. They decorated the whole thing with colorful ribbons, and then carrying a stick, they went from house to house, congratulating the residents on the holiday, singing songs, and people brought them treats from their homes. But what the children in his area most readily discussed was that there were dark nights when this gray horse itself would walk the snowy streets, chattering its teeth. Ribbons and a white sheet fluttered in the wind, beneath which lay nothing but the stick, but somehow it moved on its own. The gray horse peered into the windows of houses, searching for those who were awake. Lights burned in the eye sockets of its massive skull, making those who dared to look at it feel afraid and uneasy, and the constant chatter of its teeth could be heard. And as the final chord of this story, a particularly loud whistle, reminiscent of a snowstorm, rang out in the room. The children were silent and looked at Marielle. They had come into contact with the superstitions of a foreign land and were not happy about it. Sven and Helga understood that it was somewhere beyond the great waters, in some place with a strange name starting with U. but they all couldn't help but think of the terrifying image of the gray horse. Now go to bed. This will be a long night. We'll meet again when the blessed sun begins its new journey toward warmer times. The children rose, holding the blanket over their shoulders, placed their empty mugs on the table, hugged their sister Marielle, wished her good night, and went into the next room. They were horrified by the Sarore, but their hearts remained filled with joy from this gathering. Marielle was left alone. She glanced around the room, wrapped herself in her shawl, sat down next to the fireplace, and tucked her legs under her skirt. She looked at the hearth, at a log, at the flame she would keep burning all night, because the Yule log must burn all night. And despite all the problems and troubles, she felt calm at this moment. She had knitted woolen gifts for the children, hadn't left herself without woolen clothes, had found an oak tree for the sacred log, had managed to earn some cocoa. Even the cold had vanished from the house, as if something had warmed it. And on this darkest and longest night, she could even call herself happy. On this moonless night, when a blizzard gloated among the black silhouettes of gnarled frozen trees and blinding, dangerous snow, a giant, fluffy cat curled around a dilapidated house with 3 household members, where the fire burned. Its fur was as black as the darkest night, and its eyes glowed like coals in the fireplace.